With the Teal Mask being released now, a lot of old Pokemon have been returned, and a few new ones have been introduced. So I thought, which of these Pokemon are actually going to see usage, and which are going to return to the mediocrity that they came from? A few Pokemon got changes, a few got access to new moves, or new moves introduced in Scarlet and Violet, and a few of them can benefit quite well from being able to change their type. So, without further ado, let's just get into some of the new and returning Pokemon in the Teal Mask. Also, if you don't want to be spoiled of the new Pokemon, skip to this time to avoid all of the new Pokemon that have been released. Are they gone? Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Ogerpon, despite having, quite low stats for a legendary, looks like it will have quite the big presence. Because its gimmick of its mask changing its form, so we have the regular grass type Ogerpon, we have water grass with the Wellspring mask, we've got fire grass with the Half-Flame mask, and we've got rock grass with the Cornerstone mask. And the thing with Ogerpon is it gets a 1.2 times boost to every attack when it has a mask, not just the ones that keep its same stat boost. Also, the water type mask does not just buff grass and water, it buffs every attack. The downside to Ogerpon is you don't have a mix-up if you are to terrestrialize it, because it has its own special forms. And those forms give it, the downside to Ogerpon is you can't have a mix-up on Terra, but it's not really that much of a downside, because when you do Terra, depending on the mask, you get a stat boost. So if you terrestrialize with the Teal Mask, you get speed boost. If you terrestrialize with the Wellspring, you get special defense. With the Half-Flame, you get attack, and with Cornerstone, you get a defense boost. So if you do want to terrestrialize, the opponent will know what type it is, but if you're playing open team sheet, the opponent will know what type it is anyway. And you get a free stat boost. But the reason that Ogerpon, I think, will be around quite often is for its two forms in Wellspring and Half-Flame. Because Wellspring gets access to Water Absorb, and can kind of stop Water Urshifu pretty well, because it outspeeds. If you're running max attack, you can have a chance to one-hit it. It's about an 80% if you're running Seed Bomb. Otherwise you can run Wood Hammer or Power Whip to confirm one hit, but then obviously you've got the two drawbacks to those moves. But with the Water Absorb, it's not a Storm Drain, it's not quite a Gastrodon, but it does scare out Urshifus, which obviously prominent as ever, being Urshifu. And the other one is Half-Flame Mask gets ability... and the Half-Flame Mask gets the ability Mold Breaker. So all those Terra Grass Heatrans who think they're immune to fire are not immune to fire. Because Ogerpon's Ivy Cudgel, which changes depending on its form, will be a base 100 fire type attack that hits through its Flash Fire super effectively on the Terra type, or doing quite big damage to non-Terra Heatran. So it could be about, I think it will be about for its versatility, and I'm not certain because I've not played with it yet, but it may well be a hidden kind of thing on Team Builder, so you may not know which mask it is. Again, I've not tested this, so I will have to have a look. If not, it's not too big, people know which one you brought. If not, it could be like Urshifu, where they will have to guess which Ogerpon you've put on your team. Which Urshifu, you never really had to guess, you just assumed it was water and built for that. But Ogerpon may actually be quite scary if you don't know which mask it is and trying to build around it, because it's quite fast, it's quite strong, and with those boosts from Terra and the boost from the mask, it can get overwhelming pretty quickly. The new trio they introduced, the Loyal Three of Okidogi, Munkidori, and Pheasantipity, they don't look too good. Their signature ability looks good on paper, every move having a 30% chance to Toxic, but especially in VGC, Toxic isn't really as good as Poison, because it takes 4 turns for Toxic to reach the same damage as Poison. Their stats also aren't amazing. None of them are really that bulky to take advantage of their, you know, free Toxic, 30% Toxic. Where, you know, I am a big fan of Sneasler with its Poison Touch and Fake Outs. So I do think that Poison is more effective than Toxic, and even the Poison fighting Ogidogi, I think would still probably be worse than Sneasler, because it has lower attack, lower speed, and it Toxics you. But their moves don't have to be contact moves. So Fezandipity and Munkidori can just kind of mash Venoshock, and if they happen to get that 30% chance, then they're doing double damage of Venoshock. So perhaps, but especially considering they all have hidden abilities as well, they just don't seem to be that good at the moment. Game Freak must not have expected Ursaluna to be as good as it was, because they made a new Ursaluna. Bloodmoon Ursaluna is a special attacking Ursaluna. But it's a bit more than just special attacking, because of course it doesn't have the immediate power and the threat of Guts Ursaluna, which is incredibly strong. But Fluttermane, unfortunately, cannot just be immune to its stab, because its signature ability just allows it to hit ghost types and evasive Pokemon, so it essentially doesn't miss. It still can, but, you know, evasiveness and all that does not stop it. And they also gave it a variant of Gigaton Hammer, which is a special normal type attack in Blood Moon. This thing is going to be very, very strong. I don't think it'll quite be as scary as Ursaluna, or base Ursaluna, because it doesn't have that doubled attack from Guts, but it does have powerful spread stab hyper voices that can hit ghost types alongside its base 140 special normal type attack that's in Gigaton, Run Protect. It's definitely going to be scary to see, but whether it outclasses regular Ursaluna, because of course it's a form, you cannot have 2 of them on the same team. I don't know. I can't say yet. We are just a few days since the release, but it does look very scary. Everybody is out trying to soft reset for their 0 attack, 0 speed Ursaluna. Not me personally. I could not be bothered, but you know, go ahead if you'd like to. I think it will have a place, just I don't know if it'll be as common as regular Ursaluna. Sinistcha looks like it could be pretty good. I'm not sure if it's going to be good in VGC, because the power level in VGC is a lot higher, but its exclusive ability is quite good in doubles. Hospitality, restoring a quarter of its partner Pokemon when it switches in, if you keep switching it around. And its signature move, Mecha Gotcha. Oh, that's a good move. Mecha Gotcha is a base 80 move that has a 20% chance to burn. It heals 50% the damage it dealt, and it hits both opponents. It is 90 accuracy, of course, because if that was 100 accuracy, that would be stupid strong. But it also gets access to moves like Foul Play, so it doesn't even have to invest in its own attack. It gets Strength Sap, so more healing alongside Mecha Gotcha. It's got the Hospitality to heal its partner. It looks like it's going to be very strong, but its stats aren't amazing. So it's not the most defensive. It's not the most offensive, and it's not really built to be a big offensive threat. But it's not got the stats to be an insane defensive threat. So it will be disruptive, but whether it'll be strong enough to hold its own without being a singular gimmick, I'm not sure. But it will definitely be annoying with 20% burns, 50% recovery on both Pokemon. Dipplin is a weird one, because people have found out that it gets the boost from Eviolite. So Dipplin is not fully evolved yet. There's going to be a third stage for Dipplin at that point. And that might make Dipplin a bit better, but at the moment it's, well, Grass Dragon isn't amazing with big weakness to ice. Its stats aren't great, its moves aren't amazing. Its ability, even though it got a new ability, still Ripen's probably more effective, because it comes in, it lowers the evasiveness of both opponents. But only once. So it's the same mechanic as Intrepid Sword and Dauntless Shield, which are far more effective because it's on you. Its new move lowers opponent speed for 3 turns, so it could be used to kind of incentivize a switch, but it's not really, like, once you get past 1 speed drop, you kind of don't really need any more most of the time, and it's inaccurate. It's 85 accuracy. Dipplin don't seem great at the moment, but its evolution that seems to exist might make it a bit better. Shiftry was given an ability change this generation. Its early bird was changed to Wind Rider, which gives a 3rd Pokemon Wind Rider on top of Brambleghast and Bramblin. It's another grass type, and Wind Rider seems to be very strong for grass types because we remove their weakness to moves like Hurricane, Heat Wave, Icy Wind. I cannot remember if Blizzard counts, but they may be immune to Blizzard as well. And Shiftry, physical attacker, quite strong, especially if you give it that +1 attack with Wind Rider. If you set up your Tailwind, +1 attack, double speed, that's quite strong. The problem that the current Wind Rider user has, Brambleghast, even though it is seeing results in actual tournaments, is its coverage is pretty poor. And even its stab moves aren't that strong, or not that strong, but they have big downsides. Like you have Phantom Force, which takes 2 turns, which means your opponent can switch and whatnot. And Power Whip is quite inaccurate. It does get priority in Shadow Sneak, but Shiftry gets priority in Sucker Punch and Fake Out, which arguably better priority moves. It also has actual stuff like Leaf Blade and whatnot. And a big one is Shiftry gets Explosion. So if you really want a nuke button, you just Tailwind and then get +1 attack and then just explode on everything on Shiftry. Which, I mean, you're sacrificing maybe 2 of yours, but you know, if you want to play a 2v2 instead of 4v4 in VGC, go ahead, I guess. Empoleon is the other Pokemon that got an ability change, where its hidden ability Defiant was changed to Competitive, which makes a lot more sense for Empoleon because it's a special attacker, and its stab moves are stronger in its special attack. Whilst I do think Empoleon as a Pokemon, Defiant kind of suits it a bit more, because Empoleon is very prideful and whatnot. If you read its dex entries, it mentions it. But it's a special attacker, and I'll be honest, I would prefer to be running Flash Cannon over Metal Claw, which is its physical steel type move that it gets. Doesn't get Iron Head. So it's very much a change to just, you know, actually use Empoleon's better stat, make him slightly better. It's quite a good typing in Water Steel, so I don't know whether it will see usage, because there are just better competitive Pokemon. Like even Milotic gets it, which is kind of bulkier and can set up with it, especially if the muddy water's going around. But it could be used, might not be. It's a nice change to actually let you, you know, take advantage of its special attack that's higher than its physical attack for once. We'll see what happens with Empoleon. Milotic is a big one that I saw when it was revealed in trailers, because I still have flashbacks to Cynthia's Milotic in BDSP, which was a pain to take out. Because Marvel Scale with Flame Orb, buffing its defenses, and then it's quite a bulky Pokemon already, so we buff its defenses, it has quite high special defense. Milotic, especially for VGC, gets some good support moves. It gets Icy Wind to lower both speed, it gets Haze to get rid of any stat boosts, which doesn't include its own Marvel Scale because that's an innate boost. And of course, Returning Scald, the 30% burns, alongside Recover. So, quite a bulky Pokemon. Good support, I think, but its pure water typing isn't great, especially with Fluttermane still being Fluttermane and quite often running Thunderbolt. So, can be a nice support option, quite a bulky support option, but it may be too passive for the current VGC meta. Especially considering Urshifu still can just crit through your defense boosts, so unless Urshifu falls off, which perhaps it will. Milotic's still there as a nice bulky option. Ninetales and Politoed go together, well, not necessarily on the same team, but both of them are weather setters of Drought and Drizzle. Whilst they may not be better than Pelipper and Torkoal that we already have, they obviously all have their own situations where they'll be stronger, like Ninetales being a lot faster than Torkoal. So, you know, you don't have to run Trick Room to support the Torkoal if you want it to be offensive. And it can get some different supporting moves, like Disable is quite a big one for how fast it is. But mainly there to set up the weather in with a different Pokemon. Same with Politoed to Pelipper. They are quite similar. Pelipper's got the added flying type, so bonus weakness to electric, but some added resistances. But they do pretty much the same thing. They both get Helping Hand, they both get Icy Wind. There's no Hurricane on Politoed, obviously, so if it will be much better than Pelipper, I'm not too sure. But it's another option, so we'll see. Ludicolo. I don't think Ludicolos will really change. They will turn up in rain teams, and they will be grass type coverage in rain teams. I mean, you can have Rain Dish or Swift Swim, so you've got that mix up if you're not playing open team sheet. But Grass Water's a good typing. Its move pool still quite shallow. Access to Terra Blast gives it that big coverage move. Terra Blast, I have realised, is just kind of big hidden power at this point. They got rid of hidden power and gave you it back with more commitment. Which, it's also physical, you know, but same concept. Ludicolo, I think it'll be seen on rain teams sometimes if they need the coverage. But Ogerpon also is a grass water type if you're running the Wellspring Mask, so perhaps that'll be used more if it's kept legal, I don't know. But it's nice to see Ludicolo back again, even if they did take his dancing away from him, the poor guy. Gliscor is probably pretty big for singles. I'm not a big singles player because it's a bit too slow for me. But I know Gliscor can play very slow with its Poison Heal and Protect. But this generation they did take a Roost away from it. So Gliscor now does have to rely on Poison Heal for recovery. Maybe more offensive Gliscors will be about, with Sword Stance Earthquake over, you know, Poison Heal Protect Toxic, because it did get access to Toxic again, as that's returned as a TM as well. So perhaps, but without Roost, I think people will be more inclined to be offensive with Gliscor. And in doubles, it's slightly better because it now gets access to high horsepower. So instead of having to run Earthquake as your strong ground stab, you can now run high horsepower and not hit your own teammate. Rather than before, which I think Bulldoze was its strongest ground physical move. So maybe not, because Lando T does exist after all, and I mean, are you really going to kick Lando T out of VGC? I don't think that's ever going to happen. Also, I don't think Weezing itself is going to really do anything big. Weezing does, of course, bring with it its ability Neutralizing Gas, so perhaps I can't really point out any Pokemon that it will really work with. Like, obviously, in Sword and Shield, it was like, oh, we'll slap that on Regigigas, let's see how that does. But no Regigigas, just Regieleki and Drago. Perhaps Slacking, but Slacking itself is strong, but not, you know, strong enough. So, Neutralizing Gas is there if someone figures out a gimmick. I'm not too sure of any gimmicks that'll be that strong at the moment, but perhaps when Pokemon return in part 2, we'll see. Duskclops is the only not fully evolved Pokemon on this list. Spoilers. Wow. Technically not, but Dipplin is currently fully evolved, so we'll see.
But Duskclops, again, quite stally, same thing. Haze to get rid of stat boost with its bulk, with its Eviolite even stronger bulk, with its low HP. It has pressure, it has Terror to get rid of its weakness if you really want to, Will-O-Wisp, Pain Split. Same old Duskclops. He'll turn up and he might stall you a bit, but it could be quite strong with its stalling capabilities, but I think, you know, may as well mention Duskclops returning because sometimes he does turn up and he is unkillable, especially with the lack of toxic Pokemon, since Sword and Shield kind of got rid of toxic. Clefable is fairly versatile, surprisingly, as opposed to Clefairy, which is very much a support Pokemon. Clefable can run support if it likes, with stuff like Icy Wind, Life D, you know, recovery, all that. But it can also be quite a good sweeper in singles, with its stored power sweeps using Cosmic Power for its defenses or Calm Mind for its offense and defense. So, coming back, you gotta be ready to kill a Clefable, which, to be fair, with the introduction of Golden Go and King Gambit, Clefable does have some quite strong Pokemon to deal with now. But again, always has access to Terra, so singles players should probably maybe look out for Clefable, because I know I've been swept quite a few times when playing on Showdown, because I'm not ready to take it out, and then it just gets far too bulky far too fast.